My name's Martin Bromley. I'm an airline pilot. I'm passionate about aviation. It's what I do, it's what I love. But back in 2005, my then wife Elaine went into hospital for a routine operation, and 13 days later she was dead. When problems occurred, the consulting staff became fixated on trying to intubate to the exclusion of any other possible option for recovery. There were a team of people around who could help: an ENT surgeon, 2 anaesthetists, 2 scrub nurses and 2 ODPs. The nursing and ODP staff were well aware of what the problem was and what needed to happen, but they couldn't speak up. And as a result, Elaine was starved of oxygen, ended up in intensive care, but by the time she got there, it was too late. Eventually there was an investigation done into what had happened, and as a result of that and as a result of the subsequent inquest, what we discovered was that her death was down to what we term human factors. Now in aviation, human factors are very well understood. They're the sorts of things that affect us, affect our performance as human beings day to day. What you discover in any safety critical industry is that we all make mistakes and we all get it wrong. And it doesn't matter how good you are, actually we are all prone to making that error, to making that small mistake that can have a big consequence.
Since the tragic loss of his wife, Martin has devoted his time to raising awareness of human factors within the NHS and gives lectures in hospitals across the country. He founded the Clinical Human Factors Group in 2007, a group which brings together experts, clinicians and enthusiasts who have an interest in placing the understanding of human factors at the heart of improving patient safety. In 2013, an incident at Doncaster and Bassetlaw hospitals brought the question of human factors close to home. Gina lives in Doncaster with her husband Tom and has had a history of circulatory problems of the lower limb. She'd experienced similar problems a year earlier and had successfully undergone surgery to eradicate the problem.
I needed the operation because I was getting sore in my legs were aching, and I decided to go down to the doctor to see what was what, and he decided that I needed to go to hospital, so that's where I went to hospital. Then they said I had to have my veins opened. I went and had the operation. They did it in both legs, fine. I had a day in hospital, came home, I had a week at home, and then I went back to work. I was fine. No problems at all.
The procedure was a success and Gina returned home. However, a year later, she began to suffer a reoccurrence of the pain. After visiting her GP, it was decided that a referral was made for her to undergo an angiogram in the following weeks. This reconstruction takes us through the routine procedure and the catastrophic events which followed. The people in this reconstruction are colleagues who were either involved on the day or they're part of the team who are determined not to let an event like this ever happen again. In February of 2013, Gina was admitted to Doncaster and Bassetlaw hospitals to undertake an elective lower limb angiography. As this was a procedure which Gina had been through less than 12 months earlier, she had no reason to be concerned and was quite relaxed on the morning when she went to hospital. The team at Doncaster and Bassetlaw hospitals regularly undertook this procedure, and on this day, every part of this procedure was running as it normally would. Gina was admitted and seen by the radiographer, who confirmed her details and identification.
When you have your angiogram, all I want to do now is check your details. Just tell me your name.
I went to hospital, got ready to have the operation, no problems at all. I felt grand, I didn't feel worried or anything like that.
So you know what you're here for today, don't you?
I do. I'm going to have an angiogram on my
The
leg.
radiographer ran through the usual checks of allergies, asthma, hay fever, and at this time confirmed that she fully understood what was going to happen.
We're ready to go, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our X-ray room. Just
Everything were all right. She were jolly and she were laughing and joking. And even I said to the young nurse, I said, You know, I've been beating myself up with back ever since. I was just for a joke, jesting, you know, football on tonight, love. If you can keep her overnight, I could go to the club and watch football. Unbeknown to me that, you know what I mean?
Gina walked into the DSA room and positioned herself on the imaging couch. The staff nurse introduced herself and her colleague to Gina and explained she would be helping with the procedure by acting as scrub nurse. The doctor himself checked her notes, previous imaging and imaging request, explained the procedure and double-checked that Gina was happy to proceed. At this stage of the procedure, everything was relaxed and the team had no reason to be concerned, and Gina was chatting with the nurse as she attended to her. During this procedure, lights are often dimmed and the screen brightened to allow the surgeon to better track the flow of contrast in the blood vessels. The staff nurse continued to prepare the sterile trolley. A small amount of chlorhexidine, 2% with alcohol, a pink solution, was added to one small blue gallipot. Heparinized saline was allowed to flow into the large blue gallipot and medium-sized clear gallipot. Contrast agent Niopam 300 was then poured into the other small blue gallipot. Gina's groin was prepared by cleaning the area with chlorhexidine and covering her with sterile drapes to maintain a sterile field. Final preparations were made to the sterile trolley. Local anesthetic, lignocaine 1%, was drawn up into a 5 milliliter syringe. Contrast agent Niopam 300, mixed with 50% heparin saline, was drawn up into the two 10 milliliter Luer-Lock syringes. Heparin saline was drawn up into two 20 milliliter syringes. Also present during the procedure was a senior consultant who was observing the doctor. They used ultrasound imaging of the right femoral artery to plan the approach. They agreed that the most appropriate approach would be via an antegrade puncture directly into the right femoral artery. It was time to start the procedure.
I felt fine, no problems at all. I was just laid there quite comfortable. And then he put the wire in, that was fine.
As the procedure continued, 4 consecutive contrast injections were made. The consultant allowed the doctor to perform the rest of the procedure under his supervision. As the pace of the procedure quickened, the scrub nurse dropped a catheter on the floor.
Contrast?
Yep. Oh, could I have a new Cobra, please?
At the time, this seemed to be a minor incident. However, this could have distracted the team, causing a loss in concentration.
Contrast?
Yes.
Although through no real intention of the team, there was increased pressure for contrast to be drawn up.
Yeah, another one.
This pain, I just got this pain. I was screaming. The pain was horrendous.
The consultant stepped forward to take a closer look to try and assess why Gina was in such uncontrollable pain. He could not visualize any arteries on the screen. The consultant suspected lower limb ischemia due to an occlusive event, which can be a recognized complication of this procedure. Gina's foot was noted to have turned white, and she complained of pins and needles. The nurses attended to Gina, and observations were checked and were normal. The procedure restarted in order to obtain images of the presumed occlusion of the artery. 2 clear contrast X-ray sequences were obtained, with no further discomfort to Gina. There was still confusion as to why Gina had suffered such pain on the previous injection, and an urgency to proceed. A further attempt at imaging of the popliteal artery and runoff vessels was undertaken.
And I kept shouting, do something, my legs have been paining, get the pain, you know. I can't quite remember all of it because it was that painful. I just couldn't remember anything about that. And then I just remember shouting, please stop the pain. And then I don't remember anything after that.
The consultant again could not visualize any arteries on the screen, and as a result decided to abandon the procedure. He decided to call for assistance from a colleague. Within 5 minutes, and upon arrival of the 2 vascular surgeons who'd been called to help, Nursing staff alerted Consultant 2 to the sudden dramatic appearance of Gina's lower limb, gross mottling of the entire lower limb, reaching up to the gluteal area and the right lower abdomen. The 3 consultants discussed what had happened during the procedure and, though still puzzled, felt that Gina had suffered an embolic episode. Gina was transferred to the Department of Critical Care for ongoing treatment.
The nurse come out and I said, "Oh, is Gina back?" She said, "No." She said, "There's been a complication." Well, as soon as she said the word complication, boom, you know, my heart just started thudding.
I received a phone call from the general manager in the medical imaging department, and he said to me, "Mandy, I need to see you to tell you about an incident." And I just knew from the tone of his voice that something catastrophic had happened. Very quickly I realised that, right, well, we need to undertake a very quick investigation because I wanted to capture things whilst it was fresh in people's minds. For this particular case, I felt it was really important that we relived the whole procedure. So we did a simulation of that procedure. We could see the whole room as it was set up, the trolley had been set up, the people were there demonstrating what would happen on the day. On this particular day, something had happened to have caused a mistake to occur. And it was clear that that was from this open system of galley pots on the top of a trolley. One pot was chlorhexidine, which is a skin disinfectant, and then there were other pots of solutions for the injections, and it became clear that whilst the individuals had been drawing up and using the same systems over the years, on this particular occasion, one of those had been drawn up incorrectly and injected and caused this catastrophic harm to the patient.
With the cause of the problem now established and the condition of Gina worsening, a decision was taken to amputate Gina's lower right leg.
It was at the weekend that doctor explained there was no... If they saved the leg, there would have been no use in it anyway. And that's the amputated. Actually, it were her son Stephen's birthday on the Monday. On the 11th, that's when they took the first amputation. On the 11th. Horrendous.
Over the following days and weeks, the critical care team worked hard to stabilise Gina's condition, yet further amputations were necessary.
They sedated me and put me to sleep, and I'd been sedated for about 8 weeks, 5 to 8 weeks, something like that. And in that time, I nearly died.
She were on her way out, I'll put it that way. And to this day, Gina does still not realise.
I woke up and I went like that and I went, "What's wrong here?" And it wasn't till I tried to sit up and I couldn't. And then it sort of hit me that I'd lost my leg. And then I had to come to terms with it. Excuse me for crying. And every day was a challenge. They had to hoist me out of bed and put me in a chair. Then they had to hoist me back out the chair onto the bed, and I was getting fed up with that. And every day my husband came and every day he took me out, and every day I wheeled a bit further, do it a bit further, until I got to where I wanted to go. And every day I got further and further, and I got stronger and stronger. Then I had to come home. And that was a heartbreaking bit, because my home weren't my home. I couldn't go upstairs. Sorry. When I mentioned the garden, when I came home, I couldn't get out the door. Unless Tom took me outside, I couldn't get outside. And I'd sit staring at my garden, sobbing, because I couldn't get in my garden. And a stupid thing, my husband was raking the leaves up, and I just happened to look over and see him, and I just sobbed and sobbed. because that's my job. This don't just affect me, it affects all my family. Like, I've just got a grandchild, great-grandchild, and I can't pick him up. They have to give him to me. I can't run along the floor with him and crawl along the floor like I did with all my other grandchildren. I can't chase them on sand. I can't run up and down the garden with them. And that's really hard because I did it with all the other grandchildren. But it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And every day's a challenge. And I don't know how long I can keep doing this, but I'll just do it. I'm that stubborn. I'm as stubborn as they come. And if I see something that I want, then I go get it. And if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. I don't want to be nursed. And I don't mind anybody teaching me to do it. But I'll do it my own way anyway. And I'll get there. Please learn from this. Learn that it must never happen again. I mean, I'm 67. Got 20 years left maybe. And I've got to try and make a life. And it must never happen again.
Having heard about this incident, having seen the simulation of the incident, I was all the time wanting to put a face to that patient that was lying on that bed. So the day that I actually met them was very moving. An absolutely inspirational woman, and I was just absolutely in awe of her positivity throughout all of this. So we as an organisation, we owe it to her really to make sure that we demonstrate through this filming the lessons that we've learnt to make sure that this will never happen again to any other patient in our care.
We have a duty of care to every single patient that we treat. We've got a duty of care to each other as a healthcare multidisciplinary team looking after that patient. But when an incident like this happens, we've actually got a duty of care to the next 10, 100,000 patients that might be going through that service thereafter. And whilst in a particular instance we may have failed, where our duty of care kicks in a big way is how we can take the learning from that incident and apply it in as comprehensive and fulsome way as we possibly can. And what we've got to do is one by one eliminate those issues so that we can progressively make our services as safe and as risk-free as they possibly can be. We will never eliminate risk, but we can do our damnedest to make sure that it's as safe as we possibly can make it.
So we've made several changes to the system since this event. We now use chlorhexidine skin preparation, which is impregnated into a sponge, so it's like a product that we now use and then dispose of, so there's no risk of anything on the trolley. The open pots that we had before, they've all gone now. We've got a closed system so that all of the medications are all drawn up on an individual basis from closed systems. We also now use the WHO safety checklist, which is a checklist that involves a pre-brief with the whole team. So the whole team knows what their roles and responsibilities are. So that's another measure that we've taken to ensure the safety.
I think there's a terrible human story here, both for the patient and for the team involved. But there are some valuable lessons, and it's very easy to look at it and say, well, that's one particular part of the hospital. You know, I work in another department, we don't do things like that in our department, so therefore it's not relevant to me. But actually, all the causal factors are relevant. Do you work in situations where there is low light? Do you work in situations when you're moving medicines around into unfamiliar containers or into containers which aren't labelled? Are we using layouts on trays and in cupboards that aren't standardised or maybe just a little bit chaotic? Are we in situations where there is something that doesn't seem right and we're just putting it down to one of those things? Or are there situations where actually we say, no, there is ambiguity here, we're not happy about this, we want to resolve this? So the lessons from this, although in one specific area, for one specific patient, on one specific day, with one specific terrible outcome, are relevant to everybody in a hospital environment, and in fact, everybody across the NHS.
As a takeaway from this film, I'd like people to reflect on their own practice. It doesn't matter what service you're working in, what part of the healthcare team you're part of, but you've got the opportunity to think and act when you find there's a circumstance in your particular area that you're not comfortable with. It may be a small issue, it may be a bigger issue, but if it's concerning you, think on it and then act immediately and raise the issue. You'll never be criticised in this organisation for raising an issue.